Hello, today I am reviewing something very different that I have actually showed you before in my unboxing video, and that is the SH Figuart of Gosei Sentai Dairanger Ryu Ranger. Now, if none of that made sense to you, basically Gosei Sentai Dairanger is a Sentai series, which is basically the Japanese version of Power Rangers. And every series since Dairanger, which was the series before this, has been adapted into a Power Rangers series. Except for this one. If you don't recognize this guy, that's because he actually never ever saw light of day in the US. Dairanger was only half adapted in that they brought in the mecha from it, which you might recognize as the Thunder Zords, and a certain White Ranger. However, the majority of pretty much everything from the show just stayed in Japan, which is kind of odd. But anyway, as you can see, this is the back of the box just to give you an idea of what's coming. And here is what's inside the box. So, here is the SH Figuart Ryu Ranger. Now, if you're not sure what SH Figuarts are, basically they are some of the highest grade action figures that you can get. They have a human level of articulation. They have every paint app they could possibly need. Basically, they are plastic versions of the characters in the show. Now, as you can see, it is just incredible the level of detailing on this. I'm just going to give you a sort of pan sort of around him. Just so you can see like all the little wrinkles and creases they put on the cloth. And the shoulder pads are a little odd, but I'll get to those. And they got the nice little logo on his chest and his belt. He's got another logo on his thing there, and he does have a bit of a butt plug, but it's not super noticeable. You notice a gap there, which I need to sort of fix just by moving the joints a tiny bit, and actually I could probably just fiddle the belt down there. But yeah, some things, you really have to fiddle with these a lot to get them into a pose, because there's lots of moving a joint down and moving it and then pressing it back up. But yeah, the legs, there isn't quite as much to see. But he does have toe joints, which I think is very much worth mentioning. So yeah, as now that you've seen him, let's show off the articulation since we already have the basic figure right here. As you can see, he has his fists on right now, because these actually do have interchangeable hands. So let's start at the top. His head can move side to side, it can look up and down, and actually has a joint at the base of the neck, and a kind of actually limited joint on this particular figure. At the top of the neck, it does have nice side-to-side movement. And one thing that's kind of neat is that if you look at it carefully, the helmet is shinier than the rest of the suit, which is actually how it looks in the show, because of course this is cloth and this is plastic in the show. So it's so cool how they made that so it's got these sort of contrasts there. Anyway, I'm not going to be doing anything with this arm because, well, I'm not going to even move it because it's actually almost completely seized up, because the joint tolerances on these are so high and extremely close together that it's really rare to get a figure with loose joints, but sometimes, actually quite often, you'll get one with really tight joints, and you need to loosen it up with shock oil, 80 weight shock oil, which I actually do have on the way, and I will eventually fix that. But, you know what, he has two arms, so I can still show you the articulation. Anyway, you can bring his arm up, actually farther than that, because well, you can see it can sort of pull his arm out. And this cuff here is a completely free-flowing piece. This is just sort of resting there. So you can flip this down, and then his arm can actually come all the way up to here. And then you can just sort of pull it back so it covers up the joint. Because that's really the purpose of that little piece there. As you can see, it can sometimes kind of get stuck and whatnot. But yeah, it goes out, goes forward, out like that. It actually has a swivel like up inside that part, so it can go like that or like that. Unfortunately, you can't really do both at once, so it's kind of hard to get his arms to cross his chest, but it can be done. Also, as you just saw, he has a really nice double jointed elbow. he has a wrist joint here, that's a swivel, and then it moves like this. And you're actually able to swivel it. You're supposed to be able to swivel it once it's like this so that he also can have up and down movement, but I cannot get these to turn. They are super stiff. And that's kind of a bummer, but anyway. His torso, I'm going to just move his arm out of the way for this. His torso has side-to-side movement, so you can go like from there to there. And it doesn't have much forward movement, that's pretty much it, but it has pretty insane back movement. I mean, look at that. That is pretty cool. I mean, you do see the end of the zipper part there, but still. And this belt is its own piece, so if you need this to move, it can. The holsters are sort of free-floating. They don't come off very easy, though, which is good. He does have a waist joint, which has more or less a human level of movement. I am moving these joints pretty much to the extent that they go, so if you're wondering if it goes any farther, probably it won't. Anyway, his hips are interesting because you actually can pull them down like that. Because you can have them up and have his leg up to here, or you could pull it out and actually bring it up a tiny bit higher. Now, even though his legs can go really far forward, they don't go very far back. They go like, if you bring it down, you can bring his leg maybe that far back, which is human. I mean, really, if you move your leg that much farther back than that, you're actually probably tilting your body down, so it's a fairly accurate representation. If you move these out of the way, you can see he has full splitting capabilities. And his knees go all the way up until they bind up. His ankles are super crazy. I don't know if this is wildly out of focus for the entirety of that, but it is right now, so my apologies. His ankles can tilt crazily in both directions. And it's actually like the peg is down here at diagonal, so it like swivels as it turns. And they can go really far back. The problem is they can't go very far forward, that's about it. But his toe can go farther. So he does kind of have a good bit of forward movement there. So yeah, that is the articulation of this figure. So you can put him in some pretty impressive poses. Let's just put him in something sort of, something involving the toe joint we should do. So, head up, like that, and there. So, as you can see, the figure's articulation is super incredible. But, with SH Figuarts, articulation is only half of what you get. You also get accessories. So, as far as accessories go with this figure, you get a sword, which is very cool. You get a dagger. And then you get collapsed versions of those to put in his holsters. And then you get a combined version of them, because you can see it's kind of like both of them. That's actually a gun. And then you get these really cool sort of round blade weapons called Dairanger. I really like those. And then, finally, the biggest of all is Dairen Rod, which is absolutely massive. So yeah. There's a good little spread of accessories he has, and I'll show some bits of him posing with those and whatnot later on, but let's move on to the hands. So, including the fists that he is currently having on his arms, you get 14 pairs of hands including the fists. So, a lot of these are holding hands, so you got these ones which actually have a round hole in them for holding the Dairen Rod. You get these ones, which have a square, or at least rectangular hole. It's hard to tell, but there is actually a distinct difference, and holding one weapon with the other hand is not advised because it actually stretches the plastic slightly. And then you get a slightly wider version of those, which are for holding the Dairanger, because they have the really wide handles, so it has more space between the thumb and a flatter surface to put it on. Then you get some sort of reaching hands. Then you get relaxed hands. And finally, karate chopping hands. So as you can see, this guy has quite the spread of hands. So, Let's put him in some poses and see how he looks. So to start with, here's a basic sort of sword pose. You can see he's got the swords in his hands. And actually, I forgot to move this back just a little bit. Hang on. These figures are very finicky to get to stand, but once you put them in a pose and you can get them to actually stand, they will stand fairly solidly. I mean, if you shake the table, they'll definitely fall off because they have very small feet. But for the most part, they are fairly stable. So, let's show off some other weapons, like, say, how about the gun? And here he is in another pose, this time with the gun. As you can see, I'm using the gun in that hand and his sort of splayed out hand, so that's kind of the situation which you'd use that. So yeah, let's do something with, how about the Dairanger? Dairanger next. And here, as you can see, is where the holstered swords come into play, as you can see them on his holsters, because now he is using the Dairanger. And I think he looks pretty awesome. I've got him in a nice sort of kneeling pose, which isn't that hard to do. He actually balances quite well, as long as you leave his foot back and not forward, which really doesn't work. But yeah, let's do one last pose with the Dairanger rod. And here he is with the Dairanger rod and a relaxed hand. So, as you can see, not bad. I like it. Dairanger rod is pretty good. He does hold it a little loosely. I have to actually kind of choke up on it there because you can see it's kind of floppy in his hands, but still, not bad. Ha! I lied. One more pose. You see, this guy also appeared in Akiba Ranger, which is a sort of parody Sentai series that is oddly official for some reason. And in Akiba Ranger, he had a slightly different costume. He had a different helmet which had the eyes above his visor. And if you don't see the difference, just back up to any of the previous scenes and you'll see what I'm talking about. And that little chest piece is actually removable, and I swapped it out for the alternate one, which has some little Chinese characters. I think they're Chinese. Yeah, Chinese, because he was China Red, he was called in the show. In the Akiba Ranger, as compared to the D for Dairanger that I had on it before. Again, go back to the sort of details area of the video if you want to see that. And you'll also notice that I'm using the karate chopping hands. So yeah, just one last pose using the last of the accessories. Now we're moving on to the final thoughts. One more thing I should quickly mention is that he can actually stand with his legs past one another. It's kind of hard to get him to do it, but he can do it, and it's kind of funny and kind of cool, so I just thought I should throw that out there. So, as Ryu Ranger stands among a pile of his accessories, let's talk about some final thoughts on this figure. My opinion is, he's awesome. I don't have any other experience with the SH Figuarts line, so I can't really compare him to any other figures from that. But for the most part, I think he's an awesome figure. He is super cool, super amazing, and he needs to have his shoulder pad fixed. Just readjust his feet. There. Like I said, he is pretty amazing. If you're not familiar with the Figuarts line, well, they're actually mostly amazing. Now, the only problem I have with mine is the shoulder forward and back movement, which I can't do on the right side because it's bound up. You'll notice that in all those poses, I actually had his arm straight out of his side. It might have been out this way, but it was always like this, and that was actually severely limiting me in posing him, and there is actually much more I could do as far as posing. I actually put up some photos of him up on Google Plus regarding that, so if you want to see more poses of this guy, again, check out that post. Also, let's see. Oh yes, accessories, fantastic. There's nothing I can complain about with this guy's accessories. He's got absolutely everything you could want. I love it when a figure artist comes with just a ton of accessories like this. And this one's not even that expensive. I got one of these for like 25 bucks on eBay. and the seller had like at least 3 of them left, and I saw like 2 or 3 other sellers who were selling it too. So it is not at all a hard figure to find for a good price. I would recommend it. I picked it up because I like the Dairanger suit design. You might like Akiba Ranger, or you might just be interested in the SH Figuarts line in general. But either way, it is an amazing figure. If you can have the skill to de-stick Figuart joints, which you're going to probably need to do if you actually want to collect these, because it is a somewhat common problem, then absolutely, this is a fantastic figure. So, this has been Second Soundwave. This is SH Figuarts Ryu Ranger. See you next time.